on the way to the ocean, and they face all these pools going down with all these similar problems all the way down. And then they're expected to survive once they get to the big game, the ocean. And with those conditions changing and the predators that are out there that they're running from, are they in complete health? I look at it as an Olympic athlete training for the Olympics. He's training for the Olympics. 2 weeks before the Olympics, he's made the team. She's made the team. Sprained their knee, and they're expected to go perform at a world-class level. Well, this is life or death for salmon when they go through all of this gauntlet, and they're maimed or they're injured or they're facing gas bubbles going down through there. So the science tells us that these things are impeding their survival and their health as they migrate to the ocean. So we know that. And then we know the ocean conditions now are just another issue, another obstacle that they currently face. So as we start to continue to look at those, and those are the core truths of what is happening. That's what the science tells us. So then again, Congressman Simpson tells us that, well, I've looked at dam breaching 20 years ago. I laughed at it. You're going to take out the dams? No way. Those dams aren't coming out. There's got to be another way for salmon to survive. Well, at the Nez Perce Tribe, we've definitely turned all the dials that we can turn in restoration in all the areas and hatchery production. And we just, our scientists came out did a report on natural spawners in all of these tributaries behind in the Snake River Basin. And out of that, 42% of those natural spawners are at the quasi-extinction threshold, which means that there are 50 fewer natural spawners going into those tributaries for 4 consecutive years in a row. 42%. That's where we're at currently. So the trajectory is on a downward spiral. And in 4 more years, that number is looking at a 77 percentile in that area of meeting that quasi-extinction threshold, with 50 fewer natural spawners returning for 4 consecutive years. So those numbers, that's the science. So Congressman Simpson's proposal proposes that through technology, through renewable energies, through different modes of transportation, that we can change things. We can do business better. And that's exactly what his proposal is meant to do, to start the discussions so that we can look at a better, stronger Northwest. Not only just for the salmon, but for the people that exist here and for the United States of America, for the strength of this country to propel our irrigators, our growers, our energy needs ahead of the rest of the world, because I'm pretty sure we're behind a lot of the world now in a lot of those areas. So his proposal is meant to do that, to be a better irrigator, be a better grower, how we utilize our energies better, and at the same time solve a problem that the United States Army Corps of Engineers knew was going to happen when they built these dams. They knew that. They knew that when they built these dams. So, experience tells us what we had, what was here. Experience tells us what we've been experiencing, what the salmon have been experiencing. And technology tells us that we can do things better. We can do things stronger, smarter. And that would be up to the people to decide that. We vote for congressional leaders to speak to us, to speak for us, to make these difficult decisions. And they are difficult decisions because you have constituents of many different entities, the ones that we're speaking of, talking also to those same congressional leaders. Whether they're a representative or a senator, they're speaking to them. So we really need to speak the core truths here. And the truth is that the salmon are in a dire scenario right now. And it's time to change it. And just thankful for all the work that's being done out there, and the unity of the tribes, the unity of the Columbia River tribes, the unity of the Columbia Basin tribes, all the tribes that are behind Bonneville coming together, and then also the unity of the affiliated tribes of the Northwest Indians coming together. That's all the Northwest tribes that are in that organization and have passed resolutions. The Nez Perce tribe passed a resolution in 1999. And as of recently, we passed a resolution naming the Snake River as a living being, which it is. It's a living being. It supports life, and it is life. And now the National Congress of American Indians have passed a resolution as well, supporting Congressman Simpson's proposal and the breaching of the 4 lower Snake River dams. So that's the fight where we're at. So as we look what salmon means to not only to us as people, but what it means to the larger landscape and the riches of the Pacific Northwest, of why and how this place came to be. 300, 400, 500-year-old trees, vegetation, just, fields and fields of grass and roots and berries that supplied much. And I know people can say, well, is that enough to sustain the whole Pacific Northwest off of those natural foods? Well, no, it ain't. Because so that's why agriculture is a part of too, because you have to supplement our diets. We have to supplement our diets. So those are just the things that we think about, the things that as we talk, and those other interests that we are a part of. I mentioned where we have energy, we have a dam on our land. It's on trust land. Dvorak Dam is also blocking fish, but that's on Nez Perce tribal land. We also have Hell's Canyon, which is also in our usual and accustomed area. So our area is vast. The Nez Perce tribe treated with the United States of America in 1855 at arm's length to negotiate a peace treaty and reserve a way of life. And that was ratified. That peace treaty was signed in 1855, ratified in 1859, enshrined in the United States Constitution under Article 6, Clause 2, the supremacy law. In perpetuity, we would reserve this way of life. And salmon is a way of life for us. And we would just ask the congressional leaders, the federal action agencies, the Biden-Harris administration to uphold that obligation to the tribe and to the people that the tribe represents, and to the salmon, to the orca, to the steelhead, to the lamprey, to the landscape, and all of the Northwest tribes that are in the same situation, and all of the people of the Pacific Northwest that are in the same situation. That's an obligation. The dams were put in under federal authority, and it started in the 1930s. Where Congressman Simpson's proposal is now is an authorization of funding to support the plan, the Columbia Basin Initiative. That's also a federal authority, and the Nez Perce tribe and the treaty is also a federal obligation that the federal government has to uphold. So this needs to be at that federal level. So as we continue to advocate for dam breaching and salmon recovery, we look to not only the tribes, not only all of the allies, the non-governmental organizations, conservation groups, and all of those that support speaking the truth is what we're after, what we're fighting for. So that's just a part of the story of where we're currently at. So I'd like to thank the totem people for being here and expressing themselves in the way that they do. I'd like to acknowledge our tribal leaders, our tribal elders, our tribal members that are here, and all of you that are here to support these efforts and to witness these efforts moving forward. So with that, I would end there. Wako Yokolo.
Good afternoon. My
and the church, and I have to to the north. We're all relatives. We're all related by blood. I heard this on this journey. Down here is the 7 sacred peyote beads in green. The grandmother right here, her hand is painted red. She's missing her granddaughter. That's her daughter. That's why you see the granddaughter on this side. And she's got a shaker. She's got one of her tears of the 7 generations of trauma that our people have gone through and survived. On this side is a cage, and there's a child in the cage, and he's got a fist. These are in honor of the children that were separated, just like the government did to our people. They're doing it right now at the U.S.-Mexican border. You know, so before I hand the mic over, and I know we're on a time limit, but this is our scrapbook. If you can, maybe after we get some lunch, come by and come sign our scrapbook. That's what we're going to give. We're going to give one to the president and then the other to the House of Tears carvers that made this beautiful creation. And so, like I mentioned, our journey is guided by spirit. Couldn't do it without the help of our journalists and our friends that are live and online. I want to thank them for being here. I want to thank again the council. To turn it over to our Uncle Doug, because I'm a melt here. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. We don't usually make this easy, but we'll here. Melanie, if you're a painter, artist, come be a part of the history there. And don't forget to sign our
20-foot whale pole back 4 years ago and brought that right down to Miami. Before we left on that journey, we were introduced to a chief from the Queen Charlotte's Islands in Canada up there, and then another chief from the Fraser Valley. And they wanted to know why and what we were up to with the orca thing, And so we were explaining to them, that this resident was one of ours that was captured out of the San Juan Islands, 4 years old. And she's been in that aquarium ever since, over 50 some years, 54, 55 years. And she's been crying out. Anybody out there that can hear me, she wants to go home. So I want to go home. And there's a lot of people that have been hearing this message that have ears to hear, and they've been relaying that message to us. So I just really, it's for those that don't have a voice, that are crying out. They do have a right. They do have families. They do live together for all the days of their lives. And she was like they were taken from us a long time ago and thrown into them schools. She's gone to the same atrocities, taken away her way of life, her language, and taught her how to be something that she's not, a showgirl. So we're trying to bring her back home. See, so with this, I would just want to say hi to the donation of this beautiful photo. And, we need to share a song with you. And it was this is our national anthem song, and it's also our flood song. I'll see it. Oh, will fall. Yeah. On a natural well, sing that word alone. The chance of politics, yeah. Awesome. Once again, to all of the elders, our hands are out to you, saying Haishka to each and every one of you for sharing a breath of time with us today.
That is the song. We are the survivors of the flood. We are the survivors of the flood. We are water people. We are salmon people. Our original story speaks of who we are as survivors to stand strong. Our original stories tell about our first generation of how we're related to the salmon people. Our original story tells us that time ago at the mouth of the river in the Salus Sea, after the flood, the great flood, our people survived. They survived, but they were hungry because the waters have not receded completely yet. The people were hungry. The chief sent out his son, Raven, sub-chief, to go out and find some food for the people. Sent him out on a canoe. He went out into the water. And when he went out to the water, the fog settled in. And the water was covered. And he became very exhausted. He became very discouraged, thinking his people were going to die. So he started singing his death song. And when he sang his death song, Salmon Woman heard him. And she came swimming up to him. And she said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "Our people are hungry, so I'm going to die." And so she said, "Take your hat off, your cedar hat off, dip it in the water." He dipped his hat into the water, and she shared her children with Raven. And he was able to have encouragement. She took the children, told the rest of her children, go swim to his village and lead him back to his people. So he went back to the village. And when he arrived there, when the salmon woman arrived, not take my children from their spawning beds when they ran the river. And so that was the condition, and the people were very prosperous and happy. They were no longer hungry. The water started going down, and they went out and they started hunting and gathering like how they did before the flood. And they started gathering. So Raven and Salmon Woman went out on a hunting trip. And while they were gone, Bear went up to the spawning beds. Bear was brother to Raven. Bear goes up there thinking nobody would know what he did, but he went up there and he put his bear spirit on all of the salmon that were in the river, the coho, the chinook, and all the sockeye, all the other fish, the salmon that were all the relatives. He touched all of them, and they all died. They all died, and they started floating down the stream. And so people started crying and wailing when Raven and Salmon Woman came back to the village. Salmon Woman was so enraged, so angry that her children have died. And so she said, "I'm going to bring my children, my remaining children, now back out to the water, to the big water." And so she went out with the remaining children. And then Raven said, "Well, I don't want you to leave, so I'll make a condition. So he put some black powder on Bear, and he turned Bear black, and he told him, "You are now going to have to leave our village, brother. You're going to have to go up to the mountain. If you come back to the village, they will eat you." So he sent Bear away. And he also told him, "You're going to walk on 4 legs now, because back then our relatives were like us. They could walk on 2 legs." So they went, Bear left the village. So Salmon Woman was happy, and people were happy again, until somebody decided to start complaining about the sacred food that they're eating. "I don't like salmon. I'm tired of salmon. Too much salmon all the time. Barbecue salmon, boiled salmon. We have salmon soup. We have all these different ways of eating salmon, but we're so tired of the salmon." So again, of course, Salmon Woman was offended because they're talking about her children. So she wanted to leave again. Raven tried to convince her once again that he wants her to come back to feed the people, because the people are getting hungry again because of the consequences of their hateful words. The salmon left. So Salmon Woman agreed that she, from now on, she'll send her salmon up just one species at a time, because she wanted to protect her children. When Bear, I forgot to tell you about Bear, when Bear was up to the river, when Raven caught him, he was just about to touch Steelhead. Steelhead wasn't touched by Bear. And that's why you see Steelhead, after they spawn, they go back out to the big water. The rest of the salmon, they will, after they are in the river, that's where they die now. The rest of the salmon, except the Steelhead. But now we have to teach our children, be respectful of the salmon. Be respectful. This is the way that we survive. This is who we are. We must respect the salmon. So today we continue on protecting Salmon Woman's children. So I want to thank you, all my brothers and sisters, who continue on the good fight for protecting Salmon Woman's children. And at this time, we'd like to have a blessing for the table.